I'm coming to you live and direct from underneath this tree for a particular reason. Today's lab in about the plant kingdom is we're going to talk about something called seed dispersal. Plants need your basics of life. They need water, they need sunlight, the right temperature, nutrients. But one thing that most don't talk about is plants needing space. Seeds need to get away from their parent plant in order to survive. The seeds need space to take in sunlight, nutrients, water, and right underneath a parent plant, like right underneath this red maple, is not the ideal location. So plants have developed many different ways to get seeds away from their parent plant, and this is what is called seed dispersal. So for this lab, you're going to be introduced to 6 different types of seeds. Some you may know, some you may not. And you are going to create a hypothesis about how you think these seeds get away from their parent plant and to create space. So remember that hypothesis is simply an educated guess based on some information that you've observed. Hypotheses can be wrong and they can be adjusted later, just as long as you learn from whatever it is that you attempted and failed at. Okay, let's get our own space and head inside the lab to start our seed dispersal lab. There's a reason why fruits, like an apple, are so delicious. By making a delicious type of fruit, an animal will happily eat that fruit, seeds and all. A day or two later, that seed gets pooped out at a different location, away from the parent plant, and its nice little packet of fertilizer. This type of movement of those seeds, or this type of movement, is called seed dispersal. Seed dispersal happens in a variety of different ways. One of the most famous examples I can give you is by wind. A dandelion, if you've ever had one before and you've blown it, those are the seeds of the dandelion, and they're being taken away to go get away from the parent plant and go live a happy life. Water is another way that seeds get dispersed. A coconut, for example, floats. It's also round. So when the coconut tree drops it, it rolls into the water and goes off to become its own coconut tree. Animals, like in the example of the apple, disperse seeds. There are mechanical means, by the way. Some plants, like a touch-me-not, if you touch it, that pod will burst open and those seeds will go flying away from the parent plant. Sometimes even fire can help disperse seeds. Like the wildfires in California, for example, are wiping out large amounts of parent trees. However, there are some trees that have cones in them that have a special type of chemical or resin. And those cones at a high temperature will then release seeds, and those seeds will end up being able to have all the space that they want. They have the nutrients, the water, and over time, those trees will get replaced. During this lab, I'm going to introduce you to 6 different types of seeds. These seeds might be familiar to you, might not. So I'm going to introduce them to you. I'm going to show you pictures, maybe some videos. I'm going to get close up with the stereoscope and try and get a couple pictures for you to examine. And what I would like you to do is I would like you to create a hypothesis for each one. How do you think these 6 different types of seeds are dispersed? You'll start off with, I believe that the basewood seed is dispersed by, give a type of way you think it might be dispersed, and then explain reasonings why you think that. Talk about the way it looks, what you saw underneath the scope that might add to your hypotheses. So let's get started with our 6 types of seeds here. Here we have your typical maple tree. There are a bunch of different varieties of maple. They can be found all over North America, as you can see from this map. Here is an image of what the maple's leaves look like and their seeds. Maple is used in a lot of production of maple syrup. Okay, our first seeds that we're going to take a look at are from the maple tree. So you should be probably pretty familiar with these. These come down quite often all around here. If you haven't seen one, then you haven't opened your eyes in Western Pennsylvania. So let's take a look at what looks like underneath the scope.
Here's a nice up close look at that maple seed. The thick part down at the bottom is the main part of the seed.
All right, so I'm interested in this seed. I can see it's got this long flat part here, but I don't know what's inside here. So I'm gonna take my trusty scalpel and I'm gonna open up this seed. I wanna see, I know that that is the seed part of this tree. So I'm gonna take a look at it. So I'm gonna open it up right now. That was a lot harder than expected, but this is what I see inside there. I just cut it in half so you can see what it is. So I'd like you to decide what type of seed dispersal, what method is used for this maple seed, and why do you think that? Use previous knowledge that you have, use some thoughts that you might have about this seed.
This plant is vetch. It is related to peas. You can find vetch just about all over North America. Vetch has a very unique seed type. It looks a lot like it could be related to a pea. They are good climbing vines and good covering for grounds and gardens.
Right, this seed right here, this comes from a vetch plant. Vetch is related to the pea plant. And as you can see, and I'll get close up with the stereoscope, they look a little twisted up. So let's take a look and see what those look like underneath the stereoscope.
Notice the twisted shape of that stalk.
Okay, so check this out. I unraveled this because I noticed that it was twisted underneath the stereoscope. So when I unraveled this, a funny thing happened. One, I can see right on this, you might not be able to see it that well in the camera, there are little places, like little pods, and what fell out of there were the seeds. These little seeds, let me give you a better view. So those little dark things, those are the seeds. The vetch plant itself, that was like a pod, like a pea pod, and it was holding those seeds. So
this is a better view underneath the stereoscope of the pod and the seed that was inside of that pod.
What is it that you think this seed pod does in order to get the seeds away from the parent plant? This is going to be interesting.
If you live in northwestern Pennsylvania like you do, you should be familiar with milkweed. It is found all over the United States and North America. This is what the seeds of milkweed look like when the pods break open. Usually you can find milkweed flying around in the late spring and summer. It looks like it's snowing.
All right, next up on our list of seeds is milkweed. There it is right there. Flies around, looks like it's snowing in spring and summer sometimes. Yep. This one, if you live in northwestern Pennsylvania, you have seen this, I'm sure. So let's take a look and see what it looks like underneath the scope.
Here we are at 10 times magnification, and then if I crank up the magnification to 30 times, you really get a good look at what that seed looks like.
All right, this one shouldn't be a secret. Go ahead and make a nice hypothesis. I believe that milkweed disperses its seeds by, go and explain how you think it does it and why you think that. All right.
This seed comes from the basewood tree, also known as the American linden. This tree can be found in the northern part of North America. An example of what the seed down in the bottom right-hand corner looks like of the basewood tree. Basewood, sometimes known as the bee tree, produces a flower that produces an abundance of nectar used by bees to make honey.
Right, here is basewood seed. Basewood has a very unique design to it. It almost looks like one of Leonardo da Vinci's drawings. All right, let me get you a nice little close-up view. We've got a leafy part up top, and this part right here, those are what would be the seeds. of the basewood plant. Let's take a look at this a little bit closer underneath the scope.
Here's a beautiful shot of that top leafy part of the basewood seed. And we're going to close in zoom on what is the actual seed part of the basewood.
All right, have any ideas about basewood? Go ahead, write down your hypothesis of what you think basewood does and how it disperses its seeds, and don't forget the why.
If you've spent any time in the woods, then you've probably run into a cocklebur bush at some point. It can be found scattering all over North America. The type of seed that the cocklebur has is this one right here. Cocklebur has been used in some different medicines, especially for treating malaria.
Anyone spending some time out in the woods might be familiar with this cocklebur, or the burr from the cocklebur bush. This is a very unique type of seed. Let's take a look and get a closer view of what it looks like underneath the scope.
This seed absolutely fascinates me. I love the way it looks underneath the scope. There is a very famous invention that came from the cocklebur and burr plants.
All right, seed dispersal. What type do you think it does, and why do you think it does that? Go ahead, give me your hypothesis.
Sedge is a type of grass. This grass can be found all over North America. It does well in all kinds of different climates. Sedge's seed is extremely small, sometimes just a millimeter big. Sedge grass can be used in many gardens, and it's used to cover grounds.
Okay, we are finally moving on to what's known as sedge. Sedge, I wish I could show it to you and hold it up, but it kind of disappears on my kind of fat fingers. So the best view I'm going to be able to give you is by putting it underneath the scope and giving you some more information there.
Even only being a millimeter or two big, sedge has some unique features of the seed. It's got that head part up top, and then it's got that long spiny part at the very bottom.
Okay, that's sedge. Our final one, go ahead and write down your final hypothesis, and then on tomorrow's lab, I will explain what all of these seeds are, how they disperse their seeds, and in the assignment, you're going to give me 3 more plants that you find out there that have a unique way of dispersing seeds.